This is Paul Mitchell. I'm joined by Tom Clift.
Yeah.
And we are here today to do some modern videos. Starting off with Splinter Twin. There's a lot of different ways you can build Twin in modern. It's a pretty popular deck, and there's maybe 50 kind of locked-in pieces that every Twin deck plays, and the last few pieces are things that you can play with a little bit. So some people go kind of green with Goyf and Heartmaster of the Fells. I've seen a few Grixis decks around with like Collar Guns Command and Tasigur and Terminate, that kind of stuff. But this one is really sticking to straight blue-red. We've got the 6 islands here because staying blue-red gives you Blood Moon out of the sideboard. Blood Moon's pretty dumb. It's very powerful. And I think staying 2-color and having access to Blood Moon is, in my opinion, more powerful than the others because you just get free wins. It's pretty great.
It also means that, like, the one that runs green and Tarmogoyfs has the option to kind of not go for the combo, never go for the combo, and just force your opponent to play around it and then beat them down with Tarmogoyfs. So it's more of a tempo deck that can win with the combo. The blue-red version, especially this version, which has like spell skites to protect the combo, is very much about like trying to jam it on turn 4.
Yeah.
Although that being said, there's still a large number of games where you win by just like bolt, Snapcaster, bolt.
Yeah, exactly. Bolt, Snapcaster, bolt certainly closes out a lot of the games. And for that reason, Pestimite is often a better twin creature than Deceiver Exarch. You can play 4 Pestimite and 2 Deceiver Exarch, or maybe 3/3 if you want to skew it more towards like supporting that plan B of just beating down. But personally, I think being able to protect Bolt off a 1/4 that combos is more useful than the Pestimite.
Yeah, sure.
But you're right. Yeah, Spellskite has some incidental value against like Burn, Boggles. Infect is a good one as well. Having it main is not that much of a cost. It's one of the best answers against Abrupt Decay. The other being Click, which is also in the main. Another oddball choice out of this deck is Logic Knot. I love Logic Knot. I love it in this deck. I love it in other decks. There's no Delve spells that these colors want to play anymore. Rest in peace, Dig Through Time. But Logic Knot gives this deck a hard counter, which means, if you untap on turn 4 and you want to slam the counter and your opponent has Path to Exile, Mana Leak isn't going to save you. But Logic Knot will. Not in that scenario, but there are plenty of times where Mana Leak just doesn't get it done. And if you play any of the fetch lands on turn 1 or 2, or even something like a Serum Visions or a Bolt, and you're able to at least like Force Spike on turn 2. For anyone who's played Silumgar Scorn in Standard, you know that like 2-mana Force Spike is not as bad as it sounds sometimes.
Well, I mean, on like turns like 2, 3, 4, it's usually just a counter spell, and after that, it's a counter spell because you have a bunch of stuff in your graveyard you can delve away.
Yeah, it's rarely dead. It doesn't punish you very often. It does compete a little bit with Snapcaster Mage, but most of the time it doesn't punish you.
But given the deck used to run Dig Through Time and still got away with playing Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some people play Thought Scour, but I don't think it's necessary here, especially if you're going straight for the combo. You don't want to support kind of Plan B options like that. The other notable thing is Desolate Lighthouse. I love me a Desolate Lighthouse. Some decks play Tectonic Edge. One Desolate Lighthouse, one Tectonic Edge. But I think the problem with that is you're kind of hoping to draw your Miser's Tectonic Edge at the same time you're playing against a deck that has lands you want to kill, and you draw it at the right time. They draw it at the right time. Desolate Lighthouse just gives you value against a lot of matchups, and isn't dependent on what your opponent plays unless they're really clocking you really quickly.
And especially if you get to that stall point where you're probably no longer going for the combo and you really just want to draw lightning bolts. It just makes it,
you can draw into the combo, you can loot away the combo. It's really flexible, and it gives you options. Speaking of options, the best option about this current sideboard that I'm trying out at the moment means that you can essentially sideboard straight into a Blue Moon strategy. And what that means, excuse me, is that you can side out some or all of the combo, and then you can side in some number of these controlling elements. Blood Moon is great against greedy decks. Anger of the Gods is great against creature decks, particularly kind of Podless Pod or Junk decks. Keranos and Jace are just excellent big finishers. This guy is great against Junk. Dodges, Abrupt Decay, The +1's great against Lingering Souls, and just in general, the card advantage is great against the grindy matchups. Ancient Grudge can come in depending on what your matchup is, but essentially, if you count Spellscard along here with cards that could come out or stay in, this is the core of the deck that wants to stay in all the time. But when you're sideboarding, if you want to take out 100% of the combo, you can easily do that and still have options left over. Ancient Grudge is maybe a little situational, Blood Moon as well. Maybe even take out Spellskites. But you can keep in the Spellskites if you're trying to protect the Blood Moon against junk. Maybe you're not so worried about Dispel anymore. You'd rather have a Spellskite to protect your Blood Moon. Whatever it is, you have a lot of flexibility with these slots to muck around with sideboarding and potentially turn into a control deck, kind of like the Blue Moon deck.
Mm. Now you've I know for a while spoken about. I know you love Blood Moon as a card because you hate your opponents having fun. And you've I know been debating like, do you even want to have it in the main board? So what's the pros and cons of that? Do you think?
So there are some times when it's dead in the main. Burn comes to mind.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter what a 3-mana enchantment says on it, unless it's like gain 20 life. If you play Blood Moon, even if you're like, he's got a bunch of like Blood Crypts and Stomping Grounds and stuff, maybe it does something, you're probably still dead because you just tapped out on turn 3 for a stupid enchantment. But of course, against that deck, against Martyr, against other blue-red decks, it's not that great. It can be pretty wishy-washy. The other thing is on the draw, it's a lot worse because you're giving your opponent one more chance to play a fetch land and fetch into basics or respond to your Blood Moon. So it's kind of situational when you want it. It can spike you free wins. You can play it in the main. It would probably take the spot of Spellskite as a kind of like Miser's, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't kind of card. But Spellskite, I think...
seems live in a lot more matchups, even if it's just as a blocker.
Yeah, it's great against Burn, great against Boggles, great against Infect.
Seems solid against even something like just Zoo. It's just like, I'll just block your Wild in the Cattle.
Yeah, and then they have to use a Bolt on your Spellskite. Suddenly you've saved 6 damage or whatever. And it also, it's good in the mirror.
Yeah.
So I think Spellskite is live more often than the Blood Moon. That's why it's main. But certainly you want to have the option to side into it.
Sure.
Cool. All right, let's try some games out with this version of Splinter Twin.